All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us for episode 4 of my season 1 to my LaunchPad. And basically what this show is all about is that I am inviting extra special guests who are changing the world. Men, women, who are literally being super transparent and making products and programs that dramatically change people's life. And I have my special guest on here, Kathi Tait. I met Kathi 2017. It was around September, October, I believe. We were both taking a special course together. And then I got to meet Kathi in person for the very first time that I've ever flown out of the U.S. in Bali, Indonesia in January of 2008. So we known each other for some time now, right, Kat?
Yeah.
Yes, very, very long time. And I remember the first time I met you, I first got introduced by your son who actually did my funnel. He designed my membership site, Christopher Benetti, amazing young man. And I got the opportunity to meet you. And it was just so, so amazing. So thank you guys so much for hopping on. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. We do this show every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So always come along and see some amazing special guests who are just changing the game. So I want to pre-frame you guys a little bit. I want to first show you guys Kathi's film, which sort of is going to give you her full story. And today she's going to be talking about self-sabotage, right? And I got to tell you, Kathi, something that I just was looking up online, and it was talking about, relationships and narcissism and things like that we could sort of like talk back and forth about, because I realize a lot of women are dealing with that too, and that is a part of self-sabotage as well. So let's get into Kathi's film. And those of you who are watching, if you have any questions about any barriers that's getting in the way in your life, because most of you guys who follow me, you have your own business or you're in business development. So there's a lot of emotions and changes and self-sabotaging behaviors that may pop up. So definitely ask the queen, Miss Kathi Tait, any questions that pop up. All right, so let's get this video shown.
Are you unhappy and feeling stuck in your life? Do you hate the mirror because you don't like the way you look? I'm Kathi Tait, the Baldwarrior. When I was 8 years old, my sister died, and not knowing how to deal with it, I repressed my feelings to avoid more pain. A year later, my hair started falling out. That was devastating and scary, and it started years of doctor's visits and being experimented on as they didn't know how to fix me. This led me down a path of feeling not normal. I felt like a freak, and the bullying I experienced cemented my view of myself. So for 30 years, I hid myself, ashamed of how I looked, trying to just fit in and be like everybody else. I allowed abusive partners into my life. I drank too much and self-sabotaged because I didn't believe I was worth any more. The only good thing in my life was my son, and he kept me going when I didn't think I'd make it. When I turned 40, I realized I was the only one responsible for my happiness. So I went on a journey to discover how to find self-acceptance and self-love and take my power back. Now, I want to share this knowledge with the world and teach others how to use mindset tools and techniques so you too can find true self-love and begin to live the life of your dreams. Now, my dream life is living my passion, traveling the world to educate and eradicate social stigmas and bullying and bring about change everywhere I go. Together, we can change the world. I will show you how to own your shit, embrace your fears, love your skin, and defy social norms. Take the first step today. Join me on my Facebook page, Baldwarrior, share my journey, and find out how I can help you transform your life.
Yes. Oh my God. That freaking film just constantly brings me goosebumps. I love it. You really, really nailed it with your story. What do you guys think about that? Wasn't that awesome? We actually, Kathi filmed that at our last Bali event last December, I think it was, which was amazing. You got an opportunity to talk and connect, and you gave me some powerful advice, even about my personal situation. So I truly appreciate you for that. So, like I just mentioned, what we're going to be talking about today is something we're going to have a very deep conversation, because again, on this page, we do talk about business and how to make sales. But what I realized, and Kathi, you will probably attest to this, is the reason why a lot of women don't get to the level that they want to get to is because they don't have that self-love or that sabotage. And, Hanalei Swan, who's an amazing young lady, she's actually the daughter of my mentor, Rhonda Swan. Yesterday, she did, like, I wasn't sure, yesterday or the day before that, she did a keynote, and she said, we all have that silent audience that's telling us, you can't do this, or you can't make it, or why are you going live? Oh my God, you look funny. You say all the time. And we all have those silent things, that silent audience that self-sabotage ourselves. But we're going to talk about so much this evening. So without further ado, Kathi, if you could just introduce yourself first and just let everybody know who you are and what you do, Mama.
Sure, babe. First, thanks for having me. I really, really appreciate the chance to share my story with more people and hopefully to have some impact. So my name's Kathi Tait, guys. As you now know, I am the Baldwarrior. I'm an author, speaker, transformative coach and management accountant. I founded the Baldwarrior movement and Creed Academy to help women stop self-sabotage, start self-love, take their power back and start living their dream lives. Because that's what I have finally done in my mid-40s now. Mm-hmm. And it's been a long road for me to get here. And I don't want to see other women go through years and years of pain like I did. I really want to help them change their lives now instead of being stuck. And, I was really stuck for a really, really long time. And I was actually quite miserable. Without my son, I'm not sure that I would have felt like life was really worth, keeping at. And he was my motivation for me to keep going, get up every morning. He was my motivation to educate myself because I had to provide for him. He was my motivation for everything. Now, when he moved out of home at 18, my world kind of crumbled around me because I had existed for 18 years for him to make sure he was okay, and he became my purpose. And I think a lot of women face that too when their kids grow up and start leaving home. And you start wondering, well, who am I if I'm not a mother? Who's Kathi? Who is that person in the mirror, and what do I live for now? And so I became quite lost for a little while after that too, until I started really figuring out what my passions were and what I wanted to live for and what I wanted to do to actually have joy in my life and passion. And that took about, 3 years for me to figure out. And at the same time as that was going on, I was also in a very, very toxic relationship. And that wasn't helping because I was getting dragged down, right? So, and held back. And I wasn't being believed in by my partner. And so it made the whole process quite painful. And I realized that I had to leave him in order to be me again. And so that's what I did. I left and went through some very painful, emotional self-discovery, some learning. I had to admit a lot of things to myself, that I'd done wrong. And that's really where my journey to find self-love became an actuality, was during that period, because part of loving who you are is to forgive yourself for the mistakes you've made and to make peace with them and move forward. Because I think we have a lot of guilt. I think we beat ourselves up. And that little voice that we are talking about, that little voice is the one saying those things, And when I started really learning about what self-sabotage was, it was quite interesting. And one of the things I learned is about that little voice. So that little voice comes from when we're younger. and we learn certain things. We take on social conventions, we mimic our parents, you know, but we build this self-worth or lack of self-worth. And that little voice is the one going, yeah, I told you so. Yeah, you see, you are stupid. See, you can't do it, you know. And they're a reflection of all the negative things that we learnt when we were young. And so inside, we've got this subconscious expectation that things are not going to go well, that things that we're going to fail, or that we're not smart, you know. And that is actually what causes the self-sabotage. Because when you start really changing your life and getting out there and going, well, I want to do this, and, you know, that little expectation, the little voice comes back and goes, no, you can't do that. And so they don't, they're not congruent, right? So they don't match. So this new way you're trying to live and trying to be successful is going against what your subconscious actually believes. And that's actually where self-sabotage comes in, so that you meet that little voice's expectations. So you sabotage yourself. You let yourself get off track, or you procrastinate, or you do something to get in your own way so that you don't actually end up succeeding, and then you've met the expectation. Absolutely. So really what we need to do to change things is we need to do something about that little voice, right? Now, we all have the little voice, just some of us know to not listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true.
And I think that is the key here. And I think that if you go back to what formed that little voice and face those things head on, then I think often we're able to quiet it down enough to not sabotage ourselves. But it's extremely normal behavior. I want all of you out there to know that whatever self-sabotaging you're doing, completely normal.
Yes, it is.
Totally common, something that we all do to ourselves, no matter who you are, how successful you are, whether you're a man, a woman, a teenager. Everybody does this to themselves as part of human nature. And only through self-learning and self-discovery that we can figure out how to quieten the voice and how to stop getting in our own way.
Yeah, I just want to plug in something, because especially from my audience, a lot of us are building our businesses and still struggling with the self-sabotage behaviors in our personal life, whether it be somebody in our life that's causing us, is trying to create self-sabotage, or us, you know, doing on our own, having those voices in our head. But I know for me, you know, and I talked about this on your show last week, I'm going through a huge shift in my personal life. And it's so crazy how so many women are now relating to that and also going through the same struggle. We all discuss it and talk about it. But, you know, one of the things for me that was always a struggle and that was making me have self-sabotage is, even though I knew that I was confident and I was gifted and I had something extra special, you know, dealing with a person in our lives or in our environment who is telling us, listen, this is a bad idea, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Even their energy was affecting me big time. They walk in a room and then I would just feel like so like just muted, right? So like the biggest thing for me is self-care. I talk about that all the time, you know, here, how important it is that we look at ourselves in the mirror and say, what is it that I can control? You know, because that's all we can do. And I'm such a huge advocate now of making sure that we are, and self-care to me is more than just working out, is you saying every morning, what I want to do today that's going to make it great, you know, and not listening or hearing into anything else. You know, self-sabotage is a real thing. It's these, you know, and again, it's something that's, you know, like you mentioned, that we have to utilize different routines and methods every day. Every day is not like Monday, you may be up in the sky, you're positive, but then by Thursday, you're like, oh my God, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. You know, so, I mean, I love that you came on here, Kathi, because this is something that's going on. I mean, you're all the way, you know, in New Zealand, right? And you probably see a lot of this for your clients, but for the people right now who is dealing with partners or, you know, situations where you just can't get up and go, you know what I'm saying? Like, how can they cope and handle all that, even while they're building something, whether it be a business or, working their 9 to 5 or what have you?
Well, that's a great question, because I do know that it's not always simple to get a toxic person out of your life, or to just stop self-sabotaging. Like, it's not a switch that we can flip. But there are lots of things that you can do on a daily basis that will help keep you on track mentally and emotionally. And that then will help you cope with whatever else is going on. And I have a very special exercise that I give to my clients, which has got a lot to do with self-love. And that is to go out and either get a whiteboard marker or a glass pen, and every day write yourself a positive message on your mirror.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And leave them there, okay, for a month. Do it every day for a month and leave them there. And then what you're going to get out of doing that, one, every day you get to read your messages and pump yourself up. Two, you're being very positive with yourself, which is a great energy to have. And you know, you can nip back into the mirror anytime you want, just to pump yourself back up again. And then three, they build up over the month to you end up with a beautiful surround your head of beautiful messages. And I think it's a really clever way to remind yourself of all the great things about you. And
I love that. Yeah.
I urge all of you out there to go and do that. It really does work. I've had such great feedback from my clients on doing that exercise. So try that one, guys. Yeah. There are lots of other things you can do too, and I try and give out sort of tips on things every single day. And one of my other favorites is to write down any negative self-talk, negative thoughts. So write that down on a piece of paper, and then compose the exact opposite. So turn the negative into a positive. Yes. You know, and just switch it around and then say it out loud to yourself. And if you start doing that every time you catch yourself doing these negative thoughts or self-talk, then you can change that behavior by doing it often. So it's really just forming a new habit to think in a different way and to treat yourself better, to talk to yourself better. Because, you know, those negative statements that we may that may pop into our head, they're not true. They're not. Right? They're just our fears. That's all they are. They're just our fears. And it's really important that people start realizing that a fear is just something that you need to face. You don't need to break it. You don't need to push through it. You just need to hug it and embrace it and go, okay, I'm scared. And that's okay to be scared. It is. Yeah. But just don't stay there. Right? So, you know, the little voice, the self-doubt, the negative self-talk, the negative thoughts, it's all about fears. And I like that. I like that. I like, my daughter got me these little Post-it notes today, and I was like, oh my God, I could start that today. Like, put it right here by my office, because I'm gonna be honest with you, you know, 3-4 months ago, I don't know, because I'm going through all these dramatic changes in my life, you know, adjusting my family dynamic. You know, I was waking up every morning 4 months ago feeling like shit. Excuse my French, but that's how I felt. Like, I wake up, even though I would wake up at a great time, I would have like this negative, dark cloud over my head, because it is a struggle when you're building a business and your personal life, if you feel like it's going, you know, to the fan, right? But I like that you mentioned putting these things in our environment. Like, we're plugging it into our environment with the self-talk and the putting notes on the walls and things like that. So we're always reminded of who we are. And I always, because I'm a church girl too, you know, our pastor always said, remember who you are in Christ. Nobody can say anything else, no matter what. You know how God sees you. So for me, you know, creating those boundaries, and what I mean by boundaries, because, you know, I do have a therapist and I've had her for almost a decade now. She's phenomenal. But establishing those boundaries is so important, not with the person, but with yourself. Because I'm a reactor.
I've never grew up being a responder. I've always reacting, meaning that if somebody tells me I don't like to hear, I'll get instantly offensive, and then after that, I'll get confrontational. So I had to learn in adulthood that I can't communicate that way with people. I go to jail. Right? Like, it's like now, it's like I have to keep talking. It's like voicing, that silent audience that was like, you need to say this and you need to say that. And I was like, no, I'm just going to respond. I'm not going to react. I'm just going to respond. Right? So I'm just.
I think that's great. Yeah, well, earlier you mentioned control, and this was a really big lesson for me, was learning that I could control how I reacted to people.
Yes.
Because I would take on things, like I would take on and be personally offended by everything, because my self-esteem was so low.
Yeah.
And I had this, no sort of faith in myself, really, especially physically. It was a real struggle to be so different for most of my life. And there were times when I was first going out bald, that it was really hard. There was no tattoo. I looked and got asked all the time if I had cancer.
Oh, wow.
My little kids, being the little honest buttons they are, would go, look, mummy, that lady's got no hair. And it's mortifying for me because I had no self-esteem.
Yeah.
After I grew that self-esteem and grew my own, my own faith in myself, and learned to accept myself, the way I reacted to these people completely changed.
Totally changed.
And a really big thing I realized is that people act as a reflection of you. And I think that that's a really big lesson to learn, because when I had no self-esteem, I'm sure that my body language was different. I'm sure I was less happy. I'm sure I didn't make as much eye contact. I really didn't believe in myself. But after I started owning it and going, well, look, I'm bald. This is it. This is me. I need to find a way to accept it. And tattooing my head was part of that journey for me. And after that happened, it changed everything for me. I had an amazing self-confidence that I'd never really felt in my life. And I noticed people were different.
Yeah.
Right? They started talking to me differently. They started reacting to it differently. And that I no longer get asked about cancer. The number one question I now get asked is, did that hurt?
I know. I remember in Bali, I think 2 people asked you that. They're like, did that? Even the guys is like that. When I first met you the first time in Bali, January, you stood out to me like a sore thumb, because obviously in New York, a lot of women are very cultural. They have their own set of style, but you have a lot of boldness about you. Like, that's bold to cut all of your hair off and then get a tattoo from the top all the way to the back. Like, it was just beautiful to me. And I was like, oh my God, let me want to shave my hair off. Like, I was thinking actually about cutting my hair, but it just takes boldness, right? And that's what stood out for me. So I met you in Bali the first time, and then just this past December, we got time to really connect and spend time with each other. I remember we were at the restaurant, or it's called a restaurant, but it's an amazing like little place where we had, the dinner and stuff, and it was me, you, and Faith, and we had a fun like, you shared your story with me, and I was like, oh my God, I loved it, right? It's just like, you never, know somebody until you actually have a conversation with them. But more than anything, like, what got you to say, like, enough is enough, like, because a lot of times, a lot of women don't get out of situations like that, they stay in it, they stay at it because of whether it be their values or didn't want to be, reprimanded by their communities or what have you. So what made you say, you know what, I need to leave, and not only leave, I need to take my son, like you had to take Chris and step into a new environment for him?
Yeah, well, look, I've done this a few times actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So when Chris was a baby, his father was physically violent with me. And actually the physical violence is a very big line that's crossed. So the decision to leave, I think, can be a simpler one to make. as to the physicalities of actually getting out, well, I ended up being homeless with a baby for 3 months. So it wasn't a fun time, but I was young and I was determined that Christopher was not going to have a father like that, because I knew that he would then grow up and see that as his norm, you know, that role model. So that was really what got me out mentally from that very early. I was only 21 when I had Chris. So I was a very young person with very, very low self-esteem.
Yeah.
And I was treated very badly by his father, mentally and physically. So it still took me 7 times to get out permanently.
Wow.
Right? So he had isolated me so much from the rest of, you know, society and my family, that I kept going back to him because I didn't know what else to do, and there was no support out there. The women's refuge, I think I went to on 2 or 3 of those occasions, was a horrid place to be, and it didn't help me move forward. So I ended up having to find that within myself and figure it out. But I think that actually being able to do that successfully helped me build inside myself this inner strength I didn't really realize I had until I went through that.
Wow.
Now, that inner strength has seen me through some really bad times in the years to come. And, you know, that little voice we're talking about, the one that wants to hold you down, I had a second little voice saying, no, you're right. He is not right. Don't listen to what he's saying. I had 2 little voices. And my second little voice was my inner strength.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we find that inner voice and listen to it as well. Okay, so you know the old cliche about the devil on one shoulder, the angel on the other shoulder?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I relate it to, right? Because I think that that's a really good analogy for our little voice. So there's a negative one, but there is a positive one in there too. You've just got to be sometimes quiet enough to hear it.
Yeah.
Right. And if you haven't been through something huge to find that inner strength and hear that voice, then maybe you haven't heard it yet. So I urge you all to really try and find that the positive little voice. And there are things that you can do to hear it, right? Sometimes you need to stop and have silence.
Yes. Ooh,
right? Whether you journal or meditate, or whether you just have some space in a room with nothing else going on, get rid of the electronics, get rid of all the sound, and create yourself like a womb, right? So it's a quiet space where you can just let your mind do what your mind needs to do. And I think that today's world, we're so busy, we never stop, we never allow that. And I think that that's a really big part of self-care as well, is to have this space for yourself. And I think that if you start listening, then you'll also hear the positive little voice. And I think that that is the little voice that's got me through so many things in my life that have been really hard to deal with. And so when I talk about Chris leaving home and me then getting in a toxic relationship, that was my second toxic relationship. And it was 18 years after the first one. And I could not believe I'd got myself trapped again.
Wow.
I was kicking myself. I'm like, you got through this, you left this. What the hell are you doing stuck in one again? Now, he wasn't a violent man, but he certainly was mucking around with my head. He was also a narcissist.
I was just about to think that.
Now, because, and this is important too, because there was no physical violence, it's more insidious, right? It burrows into your mind and you can get a little bit brainwashed about what they're saying to you. And that's when you really need your inner strength, right? And you need that little voice saying, no, he's not right. No. Those things,
and you can't change him either. That was my mistake. My children's father was a 100% narcissistic person, 100%. And it was the point that when I, decided to leave, like take my 4 kids and go, the people around me didn't believe that all this was going on, because a narcissistic person will get all the people around you to be on their team, right? And convince them that you're crazy. That you're the one with the problem. You're the one, you started a business and you're always on your laptop all day. You're doing unrational things by going all the way across the world to meet people that you don't even know. That was just some of the things that I've experienced. And then I started questioning myself, where am I a little bit unbalanced? Am I walking outside of my, wifely duties, by wanting to be happy and do things that made me happy? And it did affect, it's like, that's the real thing. And the thing is that I made a mistake of me thinking that I could change my narcissistic partner, and it's not changing. Like, they're so hyper competitive, right? That putting you down or putting you in a state where you're not 100% yourself is actually a game to them. It really is. It's like they think it's a game. Even whether you respond negative or positive, it's a game. And even like separating from a person like that, especially when you get married, that's hard because they're very good at marketing themselves. Very good. It's almost like split personalities. I used to work in the mental health field, and it's almost like bipolar, but it's not. It's not diagnosed that way, medically. But it's almost like that. It's like, wait a second, did this person just yell and scream at me 1 second, and then now we're in front of somebody, and now they're just so calm, like a lawyer, like a professional person. It drove me crazy, Kat. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And they justify it in their own minds. It's completely justified to them. And then they will put it in such a way to you, whereas it sounds justified, and that's exactly what mine did too. He used to do what he called venting. So his venting went on for several hours at a very high, like loud, like he was angry, like
deep voice and anger.
It was fucked. Excuse my French.
Yeah.
But he felt completely justified in venting, and he even gave it that name. Like he called it that to make it seem less bad.
That's gaslighting, though.
It becomes a normal in your life, right?
Yeah.
And you think, well, this is the way it is. Like, and then you start thinking you don't deserve any better, and then you start thinking that you brought it on yourself, or something you did started it, or it eats away at you.
It did. I remember when I first left, I was like, well, maybe oh my God, I was so sick in the head, Kat. I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that to him, or maybe I shouldn't have. I was literally beating my own behind up, off of reacting off of what he did. And, this whole, obviously there's so much we can talk about with narcissistic people, but I just, Kat and I, you just can't change that person. You just gotta go.
No,
and again, what made me feel guilty was the fact that people in my life were so convinced that this person was great for me that even when I did leave, they would tell me, just go back and try, because in my world, how I grew up, abuse was not verbal. That's no such thing as verbal. That's just, you get into a verbal confrontation with your man, it's just y'all disagreeing. You just gotta go through it. You know what I mean? But because at least he's not beating you, and he has a great job, and he has a great education, and he comes home every night. You know what I'm saying? But that, I think, the narcissistic side is normally the start of the actual physical side. Sometimes they'll never get physical. My therapist told me that, like, a narcissistic person probably would never get physical because they don't want any backlash against them. So it's sort of like,
So I think it always comes back to you can choose how to react. And you guys out there watching, this is really important, that you can't change somebody, but you can change how you react. You change how you act, how you react, and like Letitia says, how you respond. And they're things that you can control. And you can make choices. It's your life, right? So you have the choice to be there or to leave. And there is always a way to leave. If that's what you want to do, you've just got to be motivated enough to do it, right? Absolutely. So, but you won't ever move until the pain of staying there becomes worse than the pain of moving forward. And, that's probably what happened for me, is our relationship devolved to the point where I wasn't being respected. And that is my deal breaker right there. I will not be disrespected anymore. I've had it happen to me for most of my life, and that was it. That's where I drew my line. And, you know, some people you cannot have a proper conversation with and get an acknowledgement of what they're doing. They're just not going to admit it. And so sometimes that can leave you some unfinished business. You still have to walk away for your own sake and find a way to change your life. I mean, and that's where you come to women like us, right? Because we've been there, we've done it, we've moved on, we've moved through it, we've healed ourselves. Now we want to help you guys do the same thing. We don't want you to be stuck. We don't want you to be miserable. We don't want you to be broke. We want you to have the life that you deserve.
Exactly.
Which is your dreams, right? So start dreaming, guys. Start dreaming and thinking about what you really do want. Because until you know what you do want, you're probably not going to get unstuck.
You're not. So this is so, I mean, I love this conversation. I really do. I think more as women, we have to have this dialogue of talking about some deep stuff. You know what I mean? Because this is some of the times of us going through this traumatic situation. We can't move forward in everything else we want to do. So Kathi, if you could just tell everybody how they can connect with you and start to transition to get out of these self-sabotage behaviors and things that we do every single day that doesn't move us forward in our businesses.
Right. So the Baldwarrior page is where all the action happens in my little world. We also have a private group called Dream Life Believers. That name came to me in a dream, believe it or not.
Wow.
So we have that group and the main page. So just jump on there, you'll get pointed in the right direction. In about a week and a half, I'm holding a free masterclass on how to stop self-sabotaging. I'll make sure Letitia gets that link out to you guys so you can jump on and learn some strategies to actually start the change and stop that behavior. And then sort of after that, we move into other courses I've built sort of in order. So first we stop self-sabotaging, then we learn how to love ourselves in my self-love challenge. Then I have a money makeover just to help with normal everyday finances and how to stop drowning in, you know, things like bills and debts. And then we have a remove a toxic person from your life course.
Wow.
Right? Now, you're not usually ready to remove that toxic person until you stop self-sabotaging. You can see why they're in the order they're in.
Yeah, it has to be in order. Yep.
Right. And now that one I built with Abby, Abundant Abby, who Letitia is friends with. So it's a phenomenal course. Her and I did that because we've, you know, both been through that and had to do it. And then I teach sort of a life transformation course where we look into spirituality, we look into mental and emotional health, we look into your physical health, so the self-care part, and also your finances again at a deeper level. And so that's my main course but women need to sort of step up through the learnings to be ready for that, I believe. So I am always happy to talk to anybody, to support them. You can jump on Baldwarrior and send me a message if you'd like to connect privately. And I always do my first coaching call for free as well, so I can learn about you and help you. So if you want to get some help getting unstuck, jump on over and hit me up, guys. I'm here.
That's right. Thank you so much, Kat, for hopping on. I so appreciate you being on this show. And this conversation was so hugely powerful. So again, guys, I will be back on next week, Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with another extra special guest. Those of you who have registered for this call here, I will send you out the replay along with all of Kathy's information, and definitely connect and reach out to her. Even if you feel everything is going great in your life, you know, still connect, because there's going to be some stuff that's going to come up that you did never expect to come up, just like it happened for me. So definitely reach out to Kat. So guys, don't forget, get out there and dominate, because it's time to design the life that you deserve. Thank you, Kat. See you guys next week.
Bye, guys.